Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Sheryl Green is a dynamic mental health speaker and accomplished author who has penned 7 of her own books and ghostwritten 5 others. She travels extensively across the country, sharing her insights with audiences about the crucial role of boundaries in personal and professional settings. Renowned for her guidance approach and connection with listeners, Cheryl often shares the spotlight with her animal companions. Ooh, I love furry friends. A testament to her commitment to animal rescue. Distinguished by her advocacy for mental health and animal welfare, Cheryl is a passionate and influential voice in both spheres. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for being on my show. Congratulations on your newest book, You Had Me at No: How Setting Healthy Boundaries Banishes Burnout, Repairs Relationships, and Saves Your Sanity. I am so excited to talk about this book because we were just talking about, and you know, I think this goes for anybody, but everyone who is experiencing recovery, and having to create boundaries for your old friends that still are wanting to be your drinking buddies or using buddies. So I think you're a perfect guest for this show, and I'm so grateful that you're here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So we're going to just start off and just have you share with us the moment of series of events that led you to realize the importance of setting healthy boundaries in your life and what inspired you to write You Had Me at No.
So, about 2 years ago, or 2.5 now, I had a bit of a rough patch. I was working full time for an animal rescue, and full time for a nonprofit doesn't mean 40 hours a week. It means like 60 hours a week. So keep that in mind. And I was running my own content writing business. I was dealing with clients, after work, but in the middle, and I was starting to take care of my parents more. They were getting older, and they were needing more of my time and attention. And I started to get a little depressed. I started feeling overwhelmed every day. Like I was falling further and further behind, and I couldn't get a hold of myself, and I started crying constantly. And anybody that knows me laughs when I say this because I am one of the most sensitive people you will ever meet, and I'm usually crying, so it's not an abnormal thing for me to cry a couple of times a day. But during this period, like, it was literally 24/7. If I was awake and trying to have a conversation with somebody, it was just tears coming out. And I started getting resentful. Like this really like ugly feeling of I'm tired of everyone and their demands on my time and my energy. And it just kept getting worse and worse. It was getting short with people. I was not a pleasure to be around. And one day I was driving down the road and I saw the oncoming headlights. And I had just this like really quick thought of like, if I just cross over that median, this could all just be over. And thankfully, it scared the crap out of me. I didn't wanna hurt anybody else. I didn't wanna hurt myself. I didn't wanna leave my parents without, assistance, and I certainly didn't wanna leave my dogs without a mom. So, I pulled over, I calmed myself down, and I realized in that moment that something just major had to change in my life. But I actually didn't really even know what it was. And I know I started reading, and I'm a big self-help guru. I read all the books that I could, and a friend recommended a boundary book, and I was like, "Yeah, no, this sounds like it might be nice." And I started reading that, and I cleared my plate just completely off. And a few months later, it started building back up. And I was, volunteering again and working stupid hours again and taking care of everybody but myself. And that was kind of the moment that I realized, like, this boundary thing is real and I don't have healthy ones. And I was sitting on an airplane. I always have to laugh at this because my Kindle died. And I don't know about you, but when I have to sit there and actually listen to my own thoughts, it's terrifying. And sitting on that plane, and I was like, okay, boundaries are my problem. And they're also something that I have to help others with. And I sat down and I just outlined my book on my phone and started writing it, started doing all the research. And that's where that came from, was just this, like, I have to learn it and then I have to teach it.
Wow, and I'm sure you've helped so many people because I know a lot of people who have, including myself, who have a difficult time saying no. And it's an easy word, right?
It really is, unless you don't believe that you have the right to say it. And then it's the hardest word in the world.
Right, right. And then I know some people may get offended or whatever, but like tone is very important. You can just be like smiling, say, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I can't do that." Or you can be like, "No." I mean, obviously you want to be a little bit on the lighter side but it's okay. And if they're truly your friends and they understand, they will understand. Like,
Yes.
yeah, and then they'll be like cool with it. Yeah. So your book discusses the detrimental effects of people pleasing. I was a people pleaser. I was mentioning to you, right? How did you personally experience these effects and what was a turning point that actually made you decide to change?
Yeah. So, you know what? Growing up, I was basically raised to believe that I was there for everyone else. My job in life was to take care of everybody, to be a sounding board, to make them feel, happy, all the things. Like, it was put on me that, like, one, I was responsible for, but two, I had the control. And, like, if you've ever dealt with codependency, it's this double-edged sword of like, wow, I have to help everybody, but I can help everybody, but you can't. And you just get into this like ugly people pleasing where you don't actually feel valuable unless you're doing things for other people. And so part of my background is in anthropology. So I always like to say, when we're dealing with these people pleasing feelings, we're actually afraid of being eaten. And it's going back all the way to, the cavemen times, when if you if you weren't making other people happy, if you weren't a contributing member of the group, you were kind of shunned, you were cast out. And when you get cast out, nobody's watching your back in the dark, and a saber-toothed tiger comes along and thinks you're dinner. So it may sound ridiculous because we don't have saber-toothed tigers wandering around, but that like lizard brain takes over, and we're like, oh my goodness, if I don't do all the things for all the people, they're not gonna like me anymore, and then I'm gonna get eaten. So it's a hop, skip, and a jump, but it happens.
It does
And I'm
happen, right?
sorry, you asked more of a question, and I went on a
Oh no, we take the conversation however it goes, and I'm fine.
awesome.
What did I ask? How did you personally experience these effects, and what was a turning point that made you actually decide to change?
Yeah, realizing that I could clear my schedule multiple times, but if I didn't get to the like the inner feelings and those long held beliefs, if I didn't deal with those, that I wasn't actually going to make any changes. I was just going to clear my schedule and then it was going to get filled right back up. And a friend of mine actually asked me to step into the president role for a speakers association that we belong to. And in my head and in my heart, I was like, "Oh, this is a terrible plan." Parents are older, trying to build my business back up, planning a wedding at that point. Like, there were all these reasons why that was a terrible, terrible idea. But there was also that, like, well, your friend's not gonna love you if you say no. And I hemmed and hawed for about 3 weeks before she was like, "I need an answer. Like, I have to get all the information submitted, I need an answer." And I gave her the yes. I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And instantly I was like, "Oh, what did I do?" It was like, 10 tons of bricks just on top of me. Like, that was a bad plan. And now I'm going to be angry, resentful, and overwhelmed for the next what, 2 years coming on 3 years, because there's, before training, there's actual presidency, and then there's the backup for everybody. And I was like, I can't do this. This is bad. And the emails started coming and the meeting requests started coming. I was like, what have I done? So I thankfully that was kind of the straw that broke our poor little camel friend's back. And I just realized, like, I can't do this. Spoke to some mentors and was given permission, which is something that I love to give my audiences because we often don't hear that. I was given permission to put myself first
Yes.
and to realize that, like, I actually I wouldn't be doing the chapter justice because I couldn't serve in the way that it deserved at that time in my life. Um, so yeah, my mentor said, you know what, it's okay. Like, now they can find someone else. The problem is if you wait for, 8 months and go through all the training and take that away from someone else, that's the problem. So he gave me permission to say no, and it was a huge turning point.
Yeah, a big liberating feeling too, just like, because when we say no to something that doesn't align to us, so it's like we're saying yes to something that does align to us, that brings us joy and fulfillment, and our souls even shine a little bit brighter because we're just happier that way. Because we do come first, I even tell my kids, I said, "You want that toy? No." No,
No.
no. No, you're going to have to either give away one of your old toys to somebody who can use it, or you're going to have to earn it, or let me see your grades. So I used to always say, yes, you can have this. I used to spoil my first child. Oh my goodness. He had like the whole collection of the Toy Stories, the collector's edition toy that's supposed to be in its box. Here, a 2-year-old, what's he going to do with it? Like, I was completely nuts back then anyway. But I had to teach my kids, no, I'm not going to. But they're happier now because they know what they need to do to get a new toy or
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
yeah.
like, when we teach the people in our lives, like, what they need to do and how they can earn, whether it's a toy or whether it's access to us,
Right.
it clears things up. And I'm not trying to compare children to dogs. However, dogs do better when they're trained, when they have boundaries and they know, like, hey, this is okay and this is not. Like, they're calmer and they're
Mhm.
happier.
Yeah, it says, hope I wish I can train my cat.
Cats are a whole other. I can't help with cats.
Oh man, like because I love all furry friends, and I love both dogs and cats. Never really did like cats until I actually started having my own, and I
Mhm.
love cats. And there's no way I can. I try. I'm like, oh, but they're gonna do their own thing. They're just crazy. Anyway, I could talk about cats and dogs all day. um, in your book, you introduce the Goldilocks principle of healthy versus dysfunctional boundaries. Can you actually explain this concept and provide some examples of what these boundaries actually may look like in everyday life?
Yeah, so when we think of unhealthy boundaries, a lot of people immediately go to people pleaser.
Mhm.
That's the like go to, like, oh, they've got weak boundaries, like they're a people pleaser, they're always doing everything for everyone else. But there's actually like another side to that. I call it like the pendulum swing. And so, if you're familiar with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and we're not going to talk about how much of a psycho, like, without boundaries that Goldilocks was, just going into like somebody else's house and like eating and sleeping, we won't go there. But when you think about when she went into the bedrooms and she wanted to take a nap, and she went to the father bear's bed and it was too hard. And then she went to the mama bear's bed and it was too soft. And then she finally found baby bear's bed and it was just right. And that's the best way to think about these different pendulum swings of boundaries. You've got too hard, those are rigid boundaries. And that's when you don't let people in. You're afraid to ask for help. You have a challenge connecting with people, And I think the biggest one is that you're always pushing people away. You and some people think this is a healthy boundary. Like, oh, well, if they don't treat me right, be damned. Like just get out of my life. I don't want to see you anymore. But that's actually a rigid boundary. That's I don't let people in, and it's like building a wall around yourself. And then you go to the too soft to mama bear's bed where you've got the people pleasing and you're telling everybody and anyone your life story. And you're taking on their stuff like, "Oh man, you're having a problem. I can fix that for you." So we're letting people in too much. So yeah, we're connecting, but we're not able to protect ourselves. And then you've got just right. You've got those healthy just the you get to choose in the moment. Do I let someone in? Do I say no? Do I help them with something, or do I ask for help, or do I do this on my own and let them do it on their own? Like, you get to decide on a case by case basis. And that's really where those healthy boundaries comes in. So if you feel yourself on either side of that pendulum swing, like, we want to get to the middle. We want to be able to decide each and every time, like, where do I stand on this?
Right. I love that. Yeah. And you also mentioned the clash, the class question, the class question as a system to make better decisions. Could you actually elaborate on this system and how it can help our listeners actually make choices that honor their own boundaries?
So, okay, so like, little known fact, the original like working title for this book was intentional decision making. Ooh, it's so exciting, right? So, but what I wanted to do with that is, especially the people pleasers, we are plagued with, sorry, this is gross, folks. We're plagued with yes vomit. So people ask us to do something, they ask for help, they invite us to something, they want us to wash their car and babysit their kids. I almost screwed that up, and that would have been very weird. And we want to stop that yes vomit. We want to say, like, no, I don't need to immediately agree to do everything that you want me to do. We want to stop that yes vomit, and we want to create an intentional decision. So, wouldn't have been an exciting title, but it did really kind of explain part of it. So I created this Clash question, and if anybody is like a fan of punk rock, Clash has this famous song, "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" And I changed it to "Should I Yay or Should I No?"
Oh, I love that.
Thank you. I'm a huge music fan, so I was like, how do I incorporate this? So what I did is I created like a framework, and gotta love me some Venn diagrams. They're just the best. And there's really three parts to this question. So when you are given an opportunity, asked to do something, whatever it may be, you're going to run through this in your head, and you're going to say, do I want to or have to? Okay. And for us people pleasers, again, that have to is very subjective because we think we have to do a lot of things that we don't actually. Okay. But think, do I want to or have to? Then you move to the next thing. Do I actually have the resources to do it? Everything in this world, it takes resources, whether it's time or energy or money or just that mental bandwidth that we so often run out of around 4 o'clock.
Mhm.
So do you actually have the resources to carry this out? Because if you say yes to something and you don't actually have the ability to do it, that's not fair. That's not fair to the person you've said yes to. Okay, so you've got two things now. And then the third one is, are you willing to give something else up? And again, kind of bouncing off that, like, everything takes resources. I don't know about you. I don't know anyone who's like, I have all the time in the world, nothing going on. Like, please give me a ton of things to do. Like, that's not our society. So when you are saying, like, yes, I can pick your kids up from school, whatever. What are you saying no to? Are you gonna have to leave work early? Are you not gonna be able to make more client calls? Are you not gonna be able to take your dog to the park? Or maybe it's just honestly sitting on the couch and relaxing and watching Netflix because you are fried. So if you're not willing to give something else up and reallocate those resources, again, you can't do this. And so the thing with the clash question is you have to have a yes in all three circles. Um, you have to either want to or have to. You have to have the resources, and you have to be willing to give something else up. Because if not, you're just going to drive yourself insane. You're going to let down the people you care about, and it's not going to be a pretty picture from there. So running through that clash question every time, like that's your intentional decision making framework. That's how you know, like, oh, you know what, it's okay for me to say yes to something, or hey, it's okay for me to say no.
Yes, that Venn diagram is going to be so helpful for this us as visual learners. We get to see it visually. So awesome. Now, learning to speak the language of healthy boundaries is crucial. We gotta, there's a language with it, you know? What are some initial steps someone can actually take to start expressing their needs and limits um, that that limits things? I should say.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. And really, the first thing actually has nothing to do with communication, except it's communicating with yourself. It's knowing that you actually have the right to say no and you actually have the right to speak up. And this is where that permission comes in. So, anybody watching, anybody listening, if you've never heard it before, you have the right to say no. You have the right to speak up and have your needs met. So, you officially have permission. It is given at whatever time this is going live.
That's
So
right.
that's really your first one is dealing with that inner belief system. After that, it's pausing. It's pausing to figure out what you want to do. Because if you just yes, vomit all over somebody, you're not communicating your actual feelings and you're not communicating your actual truth. So when it comes to speaking to them, it really depends on like what's your answer. And yes, no is a complete sentence. It is. Um, there's certain people in your life, there's certain situations in your life where no really isn't enough. If it's someone close to you and they're asking you to do something and you're just like, no, that could jeopardize a relationship. It could. You probably got a really good reason for saying no. So why not share it? Like, no, you know what? I have too much on my plate right now. Or no, you know what? That sounds wonderful for you, but not for me. And it's okay to have that honest conversation when there's no relationship at stake and there's no relationship there, it is okay to say no. I always joke around like if somebody comes up to you in a bar and offers you a drink or whatever, um, it's okay to say no. Like
That'll
that's
be
that's
a
fine.
hell no.
So yeah, you don't need any explanations. You just no, no, maybe no, thank you if you'd like to be polite, but there's really no. Um, so, being clear and being kind. And I think that's one of the myths that we've got floating around out there about boundaries that when you start to set them, like you have to be this, cold hearted bastard that's just like, no, I will not help you. I don't care, like all the things. And it's, it's not about that. You can be kind. You can be just clear and be like, you know what? Thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm not interested in that. And there's nothing rude about that. There's nothing off-putting. If it is off-putting to someone, that's their issue, not yours.
Right.
Um, so be clear, be kind, be concise. You don't have to give a 6-month explanation on something. Just be clear.
Yeah, and just be truthful, like, to be honest. The truth
Yeah.
always helps.
Yeah.
Saying, "I'm tired," "I don't wanna do it." I would say, "Don't feel like it this time." I'm trying
And
to think back. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say you can always blame it on someone else if you need that. I like to call that my boundary bunny, buddy. I said it wrong on a podcast one day. I said bunny, and I had to make a cute little like meme
Oh,
around
so
it. So that
cute.
exists now. But a boundary buddy. And like my husband is my boundary buddy. He was always too generous with his money. I was always too generous with my time.
Hmm.
So when it comes to somebody asking for something, I can always say, "Oh, I have to check with my husband. Oh, you know what? We're not able to do that." When people are asking him for money, he's like, "Oh, you know what? Now I'm actually a we, not a me. Let me go check with Cheryl and see like what our budget is and if we can help with that." And then he can go back and be like, "Oh, yeah, we looked at it. Doesn't work. Doesn't work." So having that other person that you can kind of not use as a scapegoat, but you can bounce things off of them and they can be part of the reason. Like, hey,
Yes,
I just can't
that's
do it.
great. Yeah, I'm gonna use that. Actually, I probably have used that because it's been the truth. So, like, let me check with
Exactly.
my husband.
Exactly.
Right. Now, after implementing the strategies you discuss in your book, what are some of the positive changes you've witnessed in your own life and the lives of those you've helped?
Ugh, I'm not resentful anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things. I and most of the people I work with are genuinely giving, caring, loving individuals. And we don't like being resentful. We don't like feeling like, wow, I don't want to help my parents. Or I don't want to like, man, I have to take the dogs to the park again. Like, we don't like that feeling. And when you actually implement healthy boundaries in your life, there's there's a freedom that comes from it because you can enjoy what you are doing and you can kind of release the guilt for the things that you aren't doing. Um, that's been, I think, my biggest like woohoo moment. Um, my clients, they're they're overwhelmed. They're wearing, too many damn hats. They're taking care of everybody but themselves. And when they read the book, when they hear me speak, when they work with me, they get to take the weight of the world off their shoulders. And finally feel like, well, wait a second, I actually matter. And I actually get to have needs and express those needs and get those needs met. And it's just this huge like sigh of relief for people. Um and I this is one of my favorite ones. A friend of mine gave my book to her sister. I had sent it to her and she said, I actually have really good boundaries. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, let's all learn. She goes, but my sister needs help. And I got a text one day. I was walking into a show and I got a text, gave my sister your book. She was finally able to say no to our dad, who wanted her to basically leave her life and her job and career and all of that and go and help him take care of a farm. He's 80 years old. He shouldn't be taking
Oh,
care of a
wow.
farm. And he wanted her to step away from her life to do this. She said no. Like she stood up for herself and she was like doing Snoopy dances all over the place because she was so excited. And it feels so liberating and you feel so like just strong when you get to do that. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes, I need to gift your book to one of my friends. I'm just thinking about her right now, as you're talking, and I'm like, oh, she would totally benefit from this book because I see her constantly giving her energy and doing this, doing that, doing this. And I'm not sure if she's using it as a distraction of something else underlying, but I want her to start saying no, even to me. I want her to start saying no. She volunteers things even before I ask anything. I'm
Yes,
like,
vomit.
I didn't even say, I even, she's like, oh, let me go ahead and do this for you. And I'm like, I don't need all that. No, not to say no to her. But yeah, I think she would totally benefit from your book. And yes, and for our listeners who are wanting to go ahead and get your book, where can they find it, or where can they find you on social media, your website, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So if you go to youhadmeatno.com, that'll give you the links to Amazon so you can go directly to it. You don't have to do their fun search. I am on LinkedIn at Sheryl Green Speaks. I'm on Instagram at Sheryl Green Speaks, and I'm on Facebook, but it's barely worth even checking me out there. So, but yeah. And if you go to youhadmeatno.com, you can also download a free How to Say No cheat sheet.
Mm.
So helping with that communication, I put it together like with some sentence starters so that you don't have to be racking your brain. And I have clients that laminated it and posted it on their wall in their office so that when anybody comes in, they're like, hold on, let me check that out.
That is awesome. I think I would like to gift that also to some other people.
It's a
Oh,
handy.
yeah, that's a great tool. I love that idea. And then finally, what is the key message or takeaway you hope readers will actually gain from You Had Me at No? And what are your future plans for empowering others to establish and maintain healthy boundaries?
Yeah, you have the right and the responsibility to set healthy boundaries. I think that's the biggest takeaway is it's not just for you, it's for everyone around you. Um, what do I have planned? More speaking.
Talking like me now.
Seriously, I'm like that. More speaking. I'm gonna be having some programs and probably some retreats coming up. So we can really dive in and learn the skills and strengthen the boundary muscles.
That is amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for being on my show today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure our listeners are going to have so many ways to say no. They've learned so many things today.